Now we're pretty good. All right. So again, my name is John McFarland. My wife and I, we were we were interpretive guides basically. We ran a tram at the Santa Ana National Wildlife Refuge back in October and November into early December of 2024. And Karen and I, we've started volunteering a number of years ago as a way basically to be in an area longer, um, and also to get to places that you can't really camp and stay at long. So we've been at Yellowstone National Park for 3 months at one time where we were campground hosts. And we've been in Big Bend, Texas, and a number of different places like that. We don't volunteer all the time, but it does come up occasionally. We always wanted to go to the Rio Grande. This came up. And so we ended up running a tram that would go in and around the refuge, and we would help take people into the refuge because it's really a big piece of land and you can't drive a car there because it's right next to the Rio, and they're concerned because of border crossings. So the only way you can go in there is by tram or by walking. So that's how we got to Lower Rio Grande and met a lot of fabulous people. And so this presentation we're going to walk through is going to be actually a way for you to also look, if you've never been to Lower Rio Grande, how you can bird there and do it quite easily with or without a guide. So this will kind of show you the ways you can do that, as well as some of the birds that you'll see. This, of course, is in the time period of like late October into the early part of December, which was still a very good birding time. But I would say for my folks there that live in the Philadelphia area, this would be a fabulous place to go into, in particular in the months of January, February, and March. And if you want to catch the migration, stick around to like the very beginning of April, and you're going to catch some really, catch all those birds that eventually make it up north. But let's go take a look. So bear with me a second here. There we go. So this is kind of a map of this area. And I'm going to be starting over here on the right-hand side where it says South Padre Island. Um, and we're going to basically, you can see the dividing line between the United States and Mexico is the green.
Don,
And
I'm sorry. We're only seeing the burning the Lower Rio Grande portion.
oh gosh, what is going on with that
Your
thing?
slide didn't slide.
Oh, resume. Huh. I wonder why it's doing that. Okay, bear with me a second.
Mhm.
Okay, good question there. Okay, share. Okay, I'm running into a glitch on this. Hang on just a second, okay?
No problem.
Yeah, let's see.
I can stop recording.
Again, oh, sorry. So there's birding Lower Rio Grande. The next screen, this is a map again of the border between the United States and Mexico. The white part obviously being Mexico and the United States to the north. And so we're starting over here in South Padre Island. And what's great about going here is, like I said, even if you're here in the winter months, the great thing about South Padre is it's like where a lot of warblers go to winter. It's their beachfront area, I guess. And you get shorebirds, plus you get warblers over here. And then as you go up the Rio Grande, this stretch between here and Salinero, which is furthest I go on the left, that's about a 140-mile stretch. This is the stretch that you want to be birding on. And as you move from South Padre Island and head towards these other areas, Llano Grande, Brownsville, which you can't quite see on the map, but these roads intersect here. That's Brownsville. Then you start getting into the specialties that you will only find within about, I'd say, an 80-mile stretch going along here. And again, the birds that you see here are birds that you will not see anywhere else in the United States, nor will you see them outside of this area. A lot of them, I think, really would be considered Mexican birds that just happen to come this far north, if that makes sense. So we'll revisit this map at the end, but we're going to start over here again at South Padre Island. And again, the other part that impacts why this works so well are the flyways. As you can see on the map here, you really have a convergence of the central flyway, um, the Mississippi flyway and the Pacific flyway. That all kind of comes in here. You get an intermixing of birds. Also, the habitat is kind of unique to this area. Um, and again, the Rio Grande itself, as a drainage basin, goes all the way up to southern Colorado. So the water on this river is actually, in some ways, a lot like the problems that they have out on the Colorado River. They're dependent heavily on snowmelt coming out of Colorado and northern New Mexico. And then over the years, a series of dams have been built along the way. Um, Positives and negatives to that. Obviously, it's helped to them to maintain people to live here, but at the same time, it changed the Rio Grande. The Rio Grande used to be more of like a delta. It would flood every year. Um, it was really a kind of a brushy habitat, and it's changed over the years because the irrigation and because the crops that are produced along the way. So here's South Padre Island. Um, Fabulous place. As you can see, if you've traveled up and down the East Coast, there's 383 species in this one location. And I know when I've looked on our East Coast United States, if you can get over 300 birds in one spot, that's a really high number. Um, and so this is what you'll see all the way along here. Um, this is all free area, by the way, South Padre Island, the convention center. There's mud flats around it. There's also a bird sanctuary right next door. And these are just some of the birds that we saw along the way. I know someone mentioned about the Hudsonian godwit. Here's the Marlborough godwit. And again, uh, this was also me using a new camera I had just got because I was going to go to Ecuador and that about 3 or 4 months later. So I took these pictures and I was still getting to know my Canon R7. So hopefully the pictures come out pretty good. So um, this was right by the convention center. There's a boardwalk there. And luckily, we're some other birders, and they told us they had seen the clapper rail and a soar, and they helped us point these out to us. I don't know about the rest of you, but I never get this close to a clapper rail. I might get a photo of it, but not this close. Um, and then there's the soar was in the same area, you know. Um, Hard to miss getting a photo of a bird that close. Uh, Green herons out there, of course, you have lots of herons. You obviously have these on the East Coast in Philadelphia. Long-billed curlew. This was taken. There's a between South Padre Island and the mainland. There's a visitor center, and they have a little wetlands area, and that's where we saw this long-billed curlew. And of course, willets, which you'd see, of course, off the Atlantic coast there. And then this is another spot that's nearby. This is maintained by local residents, Laguna Madre, and it's a great place to actually see warblers. So here's a Wilson's warbler from there. And again, we call that the Hamaka warbler, by the way. Uh, the Nashville warbler, they were they had a little pond there with a little sprinkling water, and they were all taking a bath. The Cape May was there. Orange crown warbler. And again, this is in a time of the season we wouldn't see these birds normally by anywhere I'm at, but this is in November. Uh, they do have there about four different varieties of hummingbirds. Uh, Long-billed thrasher. There's about four different thrashers out there. You can still get the brown thrasher. There's a long-billed thrasher, the curve-billed thrasher, and one other one I can't think of off the top of my head right now. Again, Laguna Atascosa, there's actually Santa Ana is a separate wildlife refuge, but it's actually part of a continuous section of wildlife refuges called the Lower Rio Grande Wildlife Refuge System. Laguna Atascosa is part of it. And what they've really tried to do here, which is fantastic about this area, is this goes back into like the late 70s, early 80s. They made a concerted effort to create um, habitat conservation all along the Rio Grande and actually buy tracts of land to help the animals there to kind of retake over that area. Laguna Anacosta is part of this. This is a huge refuge, by the way. But the bird that you want to get there is the Aplomado falcon. And this guy sits up on a cell tower right off the main road there. So again, you can find this bird pretty reliably, and it's a spectacular falcon. As you can see there with this wing spread. Now, we also made it up to King Ranch. King Ranch is a little bit further north. It's a private property. You can get onto it by guide. The other way to get into these private ranches that exist, the other one I'll show later on, you'll see that a little bit later on. But to get into this one, uh, if you go to the Bird Festival, it's held in Harlingen each year in November. I think it's just called the Rio Grande Bird Festival. Anyway, they have bus trips that take you to a number of destinations. That's one way to bird this area, by the way. Although I found the pace was a little too chaotic, but you can get into King Ranch as a private tour too. So we were on there. We saw a white hawk. This was off at a distance quite a bit. I actually think we all hopped out of the bus. We were in like a Greyhound bus. There were like 60 of us who hopped out of the bus and took photos of this bird off in the distance. Yeah. Crested caracara, quite common out there. They're really neat to see flying. They almost fly in like a straight line coming across. Um, Harris hawk, again, a really gorgeous hawk. You can see all the color on this bird. Um, there are a number of hawks that I missed while I was out there. I'd like to go back. Roadside hawk I never saw as an example. There's the Harris hawk again. And this is really cool. The Fergus pygmeow. Um, the only reason we got this bird, it was back in the bush. It used to be they could call it out, but for conservation reasons, they're no longer allowed to do this. But one of our guides crawled on his hands and knees back into the shrub, found the bird, and if you can believe it, he helped lead all 60 of us basically back there to see this owl. And then he even went a step further after that. Anyone who wanted to take photos, he allowed them to come up, take photos. In my case, I didn't even know how to use my camera to get this photo. I just gave my camera and he took the photo for me. So I was really thankful to get this photo. And now I'm over to Brownsville. So we're moving again from the east, heading to the west. Olivera Park is a drop dead you can't miss if you're there in the evenings. It's really like there's ball fields, basketball courts there, and there's all of these uh, parakeets that come there, and they come in at night, and you sometimes you hear them during the day. They are so loud. You could be next to a highway, and they're screeching so loud you can hear them. So if you go to the park, they just come in, they land in the trees, they hang on the wires. You need to be there right before sunset, basically. There's red crown Amazons there. Again, these are the unique bird to this area. Parakeets you can get down to southern Florida too, So this is a state park. And there's, again, all the way along the Rio Grande and in the adjacent area are a number of state parks. In the winter, months, starting again in late November and early December, they actually have volunteers on site that lead bird walks every single day. Uh, this is a fantastic spot to go. All of those different ponds are quite large. They have bird feeding stations. This actually almost reminds me of when you would go to Ecuador or to Costa Rica. You'll have these areas where they set up bird feeding stations and the birds are there and you can just kind of hang out and they're so used to you, they'll get pretty close to you. So you can get really good photos here. Great place to go. Estero Llano Grande. Least grebe, we got in the water there. Black-bellied whistling ducks. These birds are, if you get them in flight, they're just spectacular. And then this was taken again on the pond. You can get the black-bellied whistling duck down in Florida too. Uh, you know, I'm sure a number of your people have gone down there, but that's really great. There are two kingbirds that look alike down there, the tropical kingbird and Couch's kingbird. Very hard to tell apart. You really have to do it by sound mostly. Now, the green jay is the unique bird, one of the unique birds to this area. Again, you will not find the green jay outside of this region. So again, they're quite loud too, by the way. So they're around. How about there's a dick thistle. Now you probably get dick thistles up in Philadelphia, I'm guessing, in that area. It was kind of neat. This is actually on one of the logs that they put, peanut type suet out, and the dick thistles they're eating. A Lincoln sparrow. White-tipped dove. Again, they have some doves out there that we won't see back east. Black chin hummingbird again. Beautiful. Indigo bunting. This was right by the feeding station, a female that was there. Orange crown warbler again. I just love this grackle. Look at those eyes, huh? Pretty menacing. The great kiskadee, again, this is again a specialty of this area you will not find elsewhere. So again, there's a number of birds like this. Kiskadee is a beautiful bird. And this bird was hard for us to find. We went back to this park at least 3 or 4 times trying to catch this bird. And eventually, and you can see it was in, and again, this is where they had spread out some suet right on the branch of the tree. And so we were able to get the clay colored thrush. And there's the Couch's kingbird. Again, they're very hard to tell apart from the tropical kingbird. This is still, all these birds are all at Asteriana grande. And again, lots of other birds, but these are unique birds. So that's a common paroquet. We had one of these like right by our campsite at night. They sleep during the day. They're more of a, they're like a nighthawk. They're out at night. So really neat bird. Now this again is a unique bird to this area, the chachalaca, plain chachalaca. So you'll see these, they can be quite loud too. They're typically in a flock, just like chickens. White-winged dove, and there's a few of them in flight. This was near dusk. Snowy egret, again, you'll see birds that we would see back east like this. There's the least sandpiper in flight. Again, these are all in that same particular park. And this white-tailed kite, this was just a thrill to catch this bird. There was a pair of them. They were up on a dike just outside of the main perimeter of the park. And we were walking the dike just to see what was up there and saw this one off in the distance. And now I'm over to Santa Ana. So again, moving further to the west. Santa Ana, actually, Asteriana Grande is a better place to go birding. Santa Ana is unique. Again, it's a large tract. It does have these lakes that you can see here, Pintail Lakes, Willow Lakes. This is the better place to bird at. Uh, I will tell you for certain, if you're out here, you better have mosquito spray on and be lathered up good because there's a lot of mosquitoes around here. Um, and again, really good case to get a lot of wildlife. By the time we left, it's much better in December, January, and February. When I was there, there wasn't as much variety. But as I said, it goes right to the Rio Grande, and here's the canals that they use for irrigation around there. And this was a green kingfisher. This is a really small kingfisher. I'm sorry this picture didn't turn out well. I just couldn't, I just couldn't get him in sharp and focus. We do also have the belted kingfisher there, just like we have back east. There's the harris-hawk again. Vermilion flycatcher. This one was just gorgeous. I guess it was just in transition. Road runners, you'll see in the park that they're a little harder. They tend to be more skulky. But if you're patient, especially if you're walking slowly, you'll come across this at this particular park or at Benson, which we'll cover in a little bit. I happened to catch these. This was like the second day I was there. This was a lucky catch, these blue-winged teal just lifting off. And look at that, a brown-headed cowbird. I had to include the cowbird because, well, they're there too. The great kiskadee again, cinnamon teal, white-faced ibis. By the way, the white part is just this little part up at the top. It's hard to see in here, but yeah, that's not a glossy. Yeah. Golden-fronted, neat woodpecker, golden-fronted woodpecker, gorgeous, gorgeous bird. There was a merlin there too, and a kestrel. There's the Couch's kingbird again. And there's the curve-bill thrasher. The curve-bill and the long-bill look very similar. Really, the big differences is in the chest. You can tell a lot by that. And then this bird was a bird that Karen and I couldn't find, we kept hearing it calling. This is one of those rare birds, and you'll see this show up in a rare bird alert for the United States, as a matter of fact. Northern beardless Tyler, I can't pronounce it. I saw one of these also in Ecuador. So this bird really is a Mexican, Central and South American bird. But it was there, and some other people, about the last day it was there, we heard it. We went around. Eventually, we found it. It's a very, very small bird. Oh, by the way, they have the what looks like the hogs out there, javelinas. So I was taking a photo one day with Karen. Next thing I know, this javelina started charging me. So they basically, for the most part, are harmless. So, yeah. And by the way, again, at South Padre Island, if you're there at the right time, you can see you're right across from the SpaceX launch. This photo was taken from our camp spot at Santa Ana. So we were over 65 miles away, and that's just the trail from the rocket it had lifted up. Another place, Edinburgh Seeding Wetlands. This is again, you'll see this World Birding Center pop up a lot. There's a number of destinations that are part of the World Birding Center. Again, 306 birds here. They get some birds here that are a little bit different too. So I'll move through these a little bit quicker for you. Snowy egret, next to it, the neotropic cormorant. So again, that's a different cormorant than the double-crested or the great cormorant. It's a little bit different there. You definitely hear there are a lot of times these birds are across the other side of the pond. It's helpful to have a scope out there or something that allows you to get a little bit of distance. Tropical kingbirds again, the vermilions, blue-headed vireo that was there. Inca doves, they're again really easy to get in this park. And then this is another place. This was kind of neat. Anzadulas Park. It's right on this bend in the Rio Grande. And not many people go to it, but we were heading west this one day to go to Benson, Rio Grande. And I'd heard that we might be able to get a ring kingfisher here. So we came down and we went into the park. There really were not many people in here. One time, this was a staging area for immigrants as well as for the Border Patrol. But anyway, it's really a great spot. And you can see we hung out there long enough and we caught the ring kingfisher. It's a really big kingfisher. This bird was out in an island in the middle of the Rio Grande, so it's a pretty good shot far out, but really a spectacular kingfisher. So well worth it if you can get out there. And that same park, we found the western meadowlark. Now, the next place we're going to go to as we head further west, this is called the National Butterfly Center. This is actually a private property. You have to pay to fee to get onto it. It's not excessive, though. It's right next to Benson Rio Grande State Park. In some ways, it's a better place to bird than Benson in some ways, but the butterflies here are spectacular. I really recommend if you're out there to stop there and go through here. I'll just go through some of the butterflies quick because they're just stunning, all the ones that were out there. And I know some of my birding friends tend to look at butterflies too. And of course, there's birds. The olive sparrow, again, we had gone here. I think it took us maybe 3 times before we got it. We actually bought a pass to that place because we went there often enough. Um, and so the olive sparrow was really good bird, down low, kind of skulky too, but you can get it. And again, the chachalakas here displaying, I said they tend to be in a flock more often. There was an eastern screech owl. I wouldn't have known it was there except the people inside the office told me which tree to go find it in. So that was good. Oh, and again, the Butterfly Center has hummingbird feeders set up all in their gardens. Great place to catch the butterflies, like this buff-bellied, really spectacular hummingbird. And those hummingbirds are there too. And now here's Benson Rio Grande. Again, it's right borders the Rio Grande. They have a hawk watching station here, but that's more relevant to, late fall or fall and early spring. But it's again another good place to go to. You can actually bike around this one too. It's a great biking spot. There's the curb-billed thrasher, black-crested titmouse, really nice. different variety of the titmouse. Again, there's a male vermilion looking really nice. Tropical kingbird again. There's a harris hawk again. Um, Again, you can see the long-billed thrasher tends to have more streaky, uh, um, on its chest as opposed to dots. This was really cool. This bird flew right over me, a gray hawk. Um, they're kind of more of a chunky hawk, but they fly pretty low, so I was able to get them in this case, although, I have other photos of them up high. Black Phoebe, and again, the Phoebes were very easy to get photos of. And now this was, we went further west. This is Santa Margarita Ranch. And again, I highly recommend if you do go out there, work out some way through a guide. If you do need help, I actually know a local guide. He's a young guy. He was the guy that when we came here with the bird festival, he was the on-site guide. We had our guide that was part of our tour group, but Ryan Rodriguez, who's really well known in that area, he started helping out in this ranch when he was like 12 or 13. He's now quite an accomplished birder, and he's the person on site that leads people around here. This has some of the best views too of the Rio Grande as sort of how it would have looked before development took place along there. And this is up on a bluff looking down on the Rio Grande. And again, as you're right there, very common. The border wall is in a lot of places. The border wall, as you probably know, isn't just on the river. A lot of times because it can't be on the river, it's back a mile or two. And so you have to go through this section to get out there. But there's gates that opens up and you can get into those areas. This is a really cool hawk. The zone tail hawk, again, you can only get this in this place. A number of these birds, by the way, you're looking to Mexico, and the question is, can I count him on your bird list? Is he in the US or is he over in Mexico? Well, this one was flying up the river, so we cleaned him. The zone tail hawk, really spectacular bird. Uh, Big hawk, too. You can see how long the wings are. And this is this looking from this bluff. So we saw this hawk starting way down here in the top right-hand corner, just kind of moving along, slowly coming up. I had time enough to get the camera on him and get him clip, photos going through. And that's all Mexico over there. So like I said, it wasn't unusual to look over there and see birds that weren't really on our side of the border. Uh, Crested caracaras are there again, and there was a pair of them. They were kind of having I don't know, a little tussle in the air, let's just say. And that was pretty neat to see. This is all from that bluff. And down below, I could see this ring kingfisher along with a great kiskadee. They were right down on the banks. There's the gray hawk again flying across. Just really cool place to go. Walking back, we saw this lark bunting in the shrubs. And again, a black crested titmouse again. And then you'll see the Altamira orioles in a number of locations. Again, really spectacular oriole. And they have a lot of these feeding stations set up with the fruit or with other things that help attract the birds. My wife caught this photo. That's an Audubon's oriole. Um, I wish I just couldn't get my camera on it. And so that was also in the same location on this same area. As a matter of fact, they kind of have a couple different habitats there. So when they take you out there, they take you up to the bluff, but then they also work you back around down to the river yourself. And down there, you get some unusual birds in that area. And look at this. We have like, again, because of the feeding station with the suet there, you have both the golden fronted woodpecker and a green jay in the same location. The brown jays, again, you're only going to find this brown jay at this ranch. I hadn't seen it anywhere else. The brown jay is huge. It's bigger than any of the jays on the east. It's bigger than the jays I've seen out west. Just a really, really huge jay bird. So ladderback woodpeckers, you'll see there. Again, there's the long-billed thrasher again. They get really neat, just like cool eyes, beautiful birds. And then the last place we got out to is Salineno. Salineno is also part of the Lower Rio Grande bird sanctuaries and wildlife refuges. It's typically again in the winter and fall and into the spring. The wildlife refuge will actually have RVers like myself, volunteers, on site, and they set up a like a bird blind with feeding stations. It's a lot of people never make it out to here, but it's really worthwhile. It's again gets you right on the Rio Grande. So as we came in there, we could catch these scissortail flycatchers. They're actually on the road on the way in. And I can tell you reliably places to get these scissortail flycatchers if you want to know that. So ladderback woodpecker was there. There's the black-crested titmouse, the green jays again, black-chin hummingbird, anise. Oh, look at that. And in the middle of the river, we had an osprey too. And the blue-gray gnatcatcher. It's probably my best photo of a gnatcatcher too. It just happened to be, it was in a good location where I could get them. The chachalakas, orange crown warblers again, golden-fronted woodpecker, gray kiskadee. And again, now we're back to here. So in that short period of time, we just basically moved from, South Padre Island, we get a lot of shorebirds. Boca Chica, by the way, which is again where the SpaceX launches are. We went across to Brownsville in this lower area. We also stopped on the way at Estero Llano Grande, Santa Ana National Wildlife Refuge, Anzal Duas Park, Benson Rio Grande. These are all, I mean, this section here is only a distance of about 60 miles or so. And then this is a bit more of a drive, but that area that I showed to the Santa Margarita Ranch is right around here. And then it's a little bit shorter drive to Salaneno. And so that's kind of covering that area. Um, this is just a snapshot. I forget what day I grabbed this, but if get the list that comes out each day on the ABA list of rare bird alerts for the United States, you're always going to see Texas on here with multiple birds. And it changes what the birds are. So again, unique birds to that area. Um, and there's my beautiful bride. That's Karen and me on the East Coast at that point. Uh, and then got a nice little sunset from there. So before I finish on this, let me just go back to the map. Um, Brian, you want to open up to any questions? Anyone has questions for me? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm going to stop the recording and then we can open it up to questions.